Welcome back to Beagle Eye Visions. Just to remind you, we did get a new sponsor today. It's W.GG, an energy drink for gamers, and I even read in the Facebook comments that it's also good for a pre-workout. So you can go to W.GG and use the code Beagle Eye Visions to get a 10% off your order, or click the link in the description of this video. And we're gonna finish up episode. What was it? Episode number 10 with Brandon and Nate. This episode is awesome. Thanks for tuning in.
Because we're all individually responsible. And, you can't just keep pointing the finger at these politicians and saying that they're responsible. They are not responsible for your actions, and you're not responsible for their actions. It doesn't work that way. And I think that's just, I really want to hammer that home because that's a very, very, very important to understand.
Absolutely. Freedom is dependent upon personal responsibility. Without the ability to respond, then you have no freedom. Like if you break that word down, responsibility, it's the ability to respond. So I always go back to, with great power comes great responsibility, but I changed the word power to consciousness. With great consciousness comes great responsibility. With the higher the consciousness, the higher and more complex the form of the intelligent beings are, and what they're creating in reality, what they're capable, what their capacity of creation into reality is, you have more responsibility with more capacity of creation into reality, because there's more consequences that can come from doing it improperly, from doing it where you're infringing upon other people's rights. I like to dabble and think about things and hypotheticals sometimes about, like, what if there was such a thing as time travel, right? And I know this is a little bit abstract, and usually we don't talk about things like this, but if there was, like, is it your right to do that? Well, it depends on the variables with time travel. But let's say, like, you time travel and it does interfere with other people's liberties and their ability to live their lives. Do you have that right? Absolutely not. You do not. You do not have the right to interfere with my life at that level, because it's not your life. You don't own me, and you don't have the right to interfere with anybody's life. So technically, forms of time travel, if there are such things as time travel, I personally have a lot of issues with that concept, but I'm not going to get into that. The point is to, test this idea. How far can you take it? Well, you don't. You don't have the right to interfere with anybody else's life, especially through violence, Absolutely not.
Right.
So I just wanted to throw that in there with that.
Yeah, man. And you said, I wanted to get into ownership. I hear, I hear a lot of people saying they don't own their bodies and they're not completely responsible for their actions. What do you have to say to that?
I think it's absolutely ridiculous that a person would say they don't own their own body. First thing is, if you don't own it, somebody else will. Because other people do believe in ownership, and if you're not owning yourself, if you're not taking responsibility for yourself, somebody else will gladly take that for you so that they can manipulate you and get something from your body, from the product of your labor. Natural law is absolutely dependent upon property. Natural law rights are invariably property rights, which makes the understanding of what we rightfully own and what we do not own of critical importance. So, like, when people tell me that they don't own themselves, all I can think is that you're just an empty shell waiting for somebody to come and control you. That you don't own your mind, you don't own your actions, you don't own your behaviors, you don't own the physical manifestation of your spirit in form. You don't own that thing. So anybody else can come up and claim that at any time and say, well, that's mine. I do believe in ownership, and we're all morally relativistic, so this is my right to do so. And that goes in. They're connected. All these ideas are completely related to each other. But property and freedom cannot be separated because freedom is a property. It's a condition. It's a property of manifestation. That's why we have properties of like plants. Like, what are the properties of plants, you know? Well, what are the properties of human beings? You know, what do we rightfully own and what don't we rightfully own? But to own a thing means that regarding that thing or those things, an individual maintains three basic, you know, attributes of that. I don't know if attributes are the right word to say there, but they maintain these three basic dynamics of that, which are rightful possession, which means that you did not violate anybody to come into ownership of this thing, to come into possession of this thing that you have. So rightful possession. There is wrongful possession where, like we talked about, you go out and you steal something from somebody else. That's wrongful possession. You don't have the right to that thing. The other thing is control of usage. We hear this all the time, you know, where if you own the thing because you have, you know, the control over how it's being used, right? So a lot of people use this quite a bit. And the third thing is responsibility, and that's very important, is the responsibility of that thing. So you have, not only do you have the rightful possession of it, you did not violate anybody to gain this possession, you control its usage, you get to decide how it's used, when it's used, where it's used, etc. And the other thing is you're completely responsible for what you do with that thing and the thing itself being in existence under your wing, under your command, if you want to use that word there, you know. So in fewer words, the reason why humanity is continually experiencing a systematic and growing loss of freedom is because we collectively do not understand ownership. And we continue to commit and condone theft because all wrongdoings come down to theft. You're taking something that does not belong to you. So yeah, when people say, I don't own myself, it hurts my soul to hear that from somebody, because it just means you are literally just a meat bag puppet and you will be, you know, duped into anything, no matter what. And I think a lot of people, honestly, they don't even fully believe that. Like, if somebody else tried to come in and actually manipulate them and control them physically, a lot of these people would turn right around and be like, no, you can't do that, you know? And you say, well, you don't own yourself. You know, why does it matter if you don't own yourself? I'm going to own your body today and what you do with your body. You know, this is slavery. That's what slavery literally is. It's the claim of the ownership over the mind, the emotions, the body, and the product from those attributes of our consciousness, you know, the product of our labor. You know, people will resist that, but then turn around and say, hey, I don't believe in ownership. And it's like, there's that contradiction in their suppositional ideologies. They tell you one thing, but when it comes down to it, are they willing to live through that completely? Some of them are. And that's what's really scary, is that a lot more people are like that now than ever, you know?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, and it's like, I've even heard some of those same people say that they're not under mind control at all. And that, to me, I mean, like, even when I've given them, enough to work with, enough information to work with, that mind control actually does exist, and it is taking place on a grand scale, on many, many layers, they still believe that they are making their own decisions exactly the way only they could ever make them, without any kind of interference. And I find that very, very, very troubling.
It is extremely troubling, Nate. I have a good quote to kind of add into this a little bit, since we're talking about, sovereignty, liberty, rights, property. Samuel Adams said that the natural liberty of man is to be free from any superior power on earth and not to be under the will or legislative authority of man, but only to have the law of nature for his rule.
I love that.
Yeah, so that says it all right there. I mean, probably the most enlightened founding father that we had And if it wasn't for him, we wouldn't have had our revolution at all. It was because of this man. And, he says it all right there. It's all about natural law.
Well, that's exactly what it is. It really is all about natural law. And this is like one thing I want to say to the listeners, especially if you're new to this type of information, is that Brandon and I will be first to tell you that we were under severe mind control. And it was when we actually started to care what was going on in the world that we started to really push ourselves to know the truth. And the truth is that, we were honest with ourselves and accepting that these things are going on. Why? Because it's the truth, and we accept the truth. And, we're doing everything we can. And I'm speaking for both of us because I know we've been on this journey together for quite a while. And, we both have been doing everything we can to shed the layers of mind control that are going on in the world. And yes, of course, you can be led into other fallacies. And that's why it's important to always use the trivium and the quadrivium, like use, and we're going to be getting into Hermeticism here soon, and, using the principles to help us, figure out, navigate our way to what actually is true. Because what we're trying to do is, gain freedom and, true freedom, not, government told freedom, not nationalist freedom, actual true freedom from, people who want to rule us. And, it's been a very interesting journey so far. And, I'm really glad to be on it with someone that's really helped me, actually a few people. And it's very enlightening to be humble enough to recognize how much lying that, for me personally, how much lying that I did to myself when I was younger, because I just had no idea about any of this. I had no idea about any of this information. And, I wasn't, consciously lying to myself. But once I started to realize that I was being lied to about so many things, then I started to really look at the bigger picture and realize that I have to make a change, and I have to, and if I want to see the world be a better place, I'm going to have to make a change within myself, and then, hope that my loud voice and my leadership gets other people to snap out of their trance and undo their shackles, get out of their cul-de-sacs and actually, see the whole world for what it is, and understand that natural law is the solution. It's not, like we said, it's not a religious thing. It is the binding force that helps us, like I said in the first show, to learn our lesson and to, live in right action, to live a life that is not causing harm and destroying other people's lives or other sentient beings' lives, or the world for that matter. So
Absolutely, Nate. I know that there's still forms of mind control that I deal with, and nothing as extreme as I used to, but I still find
Right.
to this day,
Same.
like just these little things, these programs that I go in and try to, subconsciously repair and reprogram myself whenever I notice them. And to be on this path has been such a great spiritual adventure, and I would never choose to be with anybody else besides the people that have been around me for this awakening, because they have been the most beneficial and the most enlightening and most compassionate people that I've ever been around. And that includes you as a brother in this battle for freedom. If it wasn't for you and the other people that I'm speaking of, I would never have gained the understanding of my own, inadequacies of looking within and doing the inner work, because that's what it really does come down to, is doing the shadow work within yourself and integrating the shadow into your being. So yeah, I mean, I went through so many different forms of mind control. It was intense. I went through hedonism to the complete left brain prison. So I was in the right brain prison, and then I was in the left brain prison. I went all over the place with it. Definitely programmed from all kinds of stuff, from culture subliminally, especially through TV and all this crap. I never really got into the news mind control too much, because I was kind of part of the black sheep community, because I was more raised a rebel than most people. And I even tell people that I was the black sheep amongst the black sheep, because I kept questioning, like, why the hell are you guys claiming you want freedom and you're not doing what's required to meet the universal laws to actually manifest freedom? So when I was younger, I did understand these things at some level, but that's because, I was raised on some of the principles of the founding fathers and things like that. Doesn't mean that I was perfect, and I don't think any of us will ever be perfect, but to try to be perfect is the closest that we can be to perfection, to always try to enhance ourselves, enhance our consciousness, and do better without causing violence and without destroying people's freedoms is what I would consider to be quote unquote perfection. That we're progressing, we're expanding consciousness, we're expanding our dynamic of how we live.
Right, I'm glad that you said the trying part, because the thing is that, why is it that love is so hard especially to understand? And it's because when you try, you care. When you care, you put in lots of effort, and you are realizing that anything easy, it's not really like, you're not really learning anything from it. This, like I said, again and again, I'm just going to keep on saying this, is that, it's the lessons. It's the lessons that we keep on learning, and we're going to fail like constantly until we finally get the lesson. And so as long as things are easy in a world that's really beat up and a total mess, then maybe you should really start to question and be tougher on what your intake is of information, because when you're trying to understand information like this, I know for me it was really hard to understand this information, but I kept trying, I kept pushing, I kept saying, I want the truth. I really want to understand this, because I know that there's something right here. I know that there's something valuable here. And it wasn't easy. That's the thing. It was not easy. And so I persisted. I gave up so many things to do what I'm doing. I made time and I paid attention. The spiritual currencies, man's currency is, spend money and pay bills. And then you have spiritual currency, which is, spend time and pay attention. And that's what I ended up transitioning towards. Obviously, like the things that I've done in the past, I'm glad that I went through them. I got to experience things, but the truth is, no one was really putting this information in front of me. I had to go search for it for myself. And I wish that someone did, but no one around me knew this type of information. This information has been hidden from us. So we're just doing our best now to expose it and show that, this isn't an easy thing, and it's going to take your time and attention, and you're going to have to try really hard, because I'm telling you, the way things that are going right now, who knows how much more time we're going to have. And and that's not to scare people or fearmonger. It's just to say, like, hey, my eyes are open enough to know that things are really not going well, and it's going to take extra effort and your undivided attention to really make changes in your personal life that are going to affect changes in the world.
Absolutely, and that was very well said, Nate. I also like to point out, like, when you're trying, you've already become aware of something, which means that you've already done the first step, which is that you've expanded your consciousness to a higher degree than what the problem actually is. You know, you're actually already on the pathway to creating a change. So, you know, the whole idea of there is no try, just do or do not, you know, well, you're already doing. Like, if you're really trying, meaning that you've become aware, there's already a form of doing. But then you got to really do, which is the next phase of that doing internally. You have to externally do. You have to take it to that next level of manifesting it through action. And so I just wanted to add that in there also.
Well, Brandon, I see we just went over the hour mark, and I think that's a great place to end. So that's all the time we have today, guys. Thanks for tuning in and giving this information your time and attention. You can find more information or our work here at CubbyWhole.com. That's CubbyWhole.com. There you'll find news, updates, videos, and more. We hope you have found value here today, and please tune in to the next show where we go further into natural law and expand on the topics we just touched on today. So it is really important to watch these natural law shows, or to listen to these natural law shows, in order to not miss, you know, the bigger picture, the fuller picture, and to grasp a better understanding. And that being said, thanks for being on today, Brandon. It's really awesome to have you back, and thank you all for listening. Have a great day.
Till next time.
All right, another most excellent episode in the books. Thank you if you made it this far. Don't forget there's a metal show coming up if you're in the Northern Indiana area. It's a metal show at the Michiana Education and Arts Club. I'll provide a link in this video as well as the Seed 4 conference. Like I said, stick around for the next one. That was episode 10. The next episode is episode 11. Ooh, excuse me. Thank you again if you made it this far. Peace.